January 21st, 2026, Wednesday morning. Two forecasters at the National Weather Service office in Fort Worth, Texas, are looking at model output that they have been refreshing every 6 hours for 3 days. The models have been consistent in a way that weather models are not always consistent. No divergence between the European Center and the American GFS, no backing away from the signal, no softening of the numbers. The consensus: a massive winter storm is developing off the coast of California, and it is heading straight for them. A 2,000-mile wide swath of wintry precipitation, the kind of weather system that meteorologists, with their professional habit of understatement, call impactful and prolonged, is going to sweep from central Texas through the northeast, dropping heavy snow, sleet, and freezing rain across a geography that includes cities that have not seen serious winter weather in years, over infrastructure that was not built for it, onto roads whose salt trucks are not stocked, through electrical grids whose power lines run through trees that have no idea what ice does to their branches. The storm is developing. And here is what nobody watching the Wednesday morning forecast knows yet. This is going to become the most significant widespread winter storm the country has seen in years. It is going to be called Winter Storm Fern by the Weather Channel, and Snowmageddon in the cities that take the worst of it, and it is going to affect more than 200 million Americans. Here is where the storm came from, because the origin story of a storm this large is as dramatic as its impact, and the atmospheric machinery that built it is worth understanding completely. On January 22nd, a cold core low developed over the Pacific Ocean, moving southeastward toward the Baja California Peninsula. This was not the storm itself. This was the trigger, the initial disturbance that set in motion a chain of atmospheric events that would unfold over 5 days and span an entire continent. The upper-level wave associated with this Pacific system elongated the polar vortex, which was sitting over northern Canada and Alaska in its weakened, disrupted, post-sudden stratospheric warming configuration. The same configuration that had been identified in November 2025, and that forecasters had been warning since. December was a harbinger of an extremely active cold pattern for January. The elongated polar vortex allowed cold Arctic air to surge southward across the plains. And as that cold air moved southeast, it found moisture. Moisture off the California coast, moisture off the Gulf of Mexico. And the collision of Arctic cold and subtropical moisture is the fundamental recipe for every major winter storm in American history. On January 22nd, that collision was beginning. By January 23rd, it had become something that the Washington Post's weather team described in terms reserved for genuinely exceptional events, a 2,000-mile stretch of the country from the southern plains and southwest to the east coast. The NOAA Gulfstream FIR-SP, a specialized data collection aircraft that NOAA flies into developing weather systems to gather upper atmosphere measurements that improve forecast accuracy, was dispatched to fly into the developing storm on January 22nd. This is not a routine step. NOAA deploys its reconnaissance aircraft when the scale and uncertainty of a system are large, enough that additional data will meaningfully improve the forecast. The fact that the Gulfstream 4 was flying into the system on day one of its development tells you everything about how seriously NOAA's forecasters were taking what they were seeing. The data it returned fed directly into the numerical weather prediction models, the ones that NWS Fort Worth forecaster Allison Prater and every other operationals meteorologist in the country was watching, refreshing, and preparing public messaging around. And the message that the models were delivering was unambiguous. This is going to be bad. By Wednesday afternoon, January 21st, winter storm watches had already been issued for large areas across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Kentucky, Missouri, Louisiana, Tennessee, North Carolina, West Virginia, and Virginia. University of Oklahoma Associate Professor of Meteorology Jason Furtado told NPR, "It's the most significant widespread winter storm the country has seen in a while." He added a specific warning that separated this storm from the category of inconvenient weather events. It's not just the precipitation, it's the extreme cold that's coming in behind us as well. The precipitation and the cold, together, at the same time. One icing everything, the other making the ice last for days rather than hours. Around 205 million people across the country were under winter weather alerts for snow, ice, or extreme cold as the storm approached. Not a million, not 10 million, 205 million. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas activated state emergency response resources on January 21st, before a single flake had fallen. After February 2021's Winter Storm Uri, which had killed 246 Texans and come 4 minutes and 37 seconds from causing a complete, uncontrolled collapse of the state's electrical grid, Abbott understood that waiting for the storm to arrive before preparing was not an option. Based on current forecasts, the state of Texas is acting to ensure Texans have the resources they need before severe winter weather impacts communities, he said in a statement. 6 other governors declared states of emergency before the storm reached their states. Wes Moore of Maryland, Mickey Sherrill of New Jersey, Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, Matt Meyer of Delaware, Patrick Morrissey of West Virginia, and Muriel Bowser of D.C. An Indiana governor, Mike Braun, declared both a state of emergency and a statewide disaster declaration on January 24th, as the storm's snowfall began accumulating in his state, with forecasts projecting 12 to 18 inches for southern Indiana in the following 24 hours. Here is what the storm actually produced, city by city, region by region, because the statistics of an event this large need to be assembled into a geographic picture before they become comprehensible. In the Southern Plains, Oklahoma City received 4.4 inches of snow on January 24th, breaking the previous daily snowfall record that had stood since 1948. Little Rock, Arkansas, received 6 inches and broke a daily snowfall record set in 1899, a record that had stood for 127 years. In the Mississippi Valley, Fredericktown, Missouri accumulated more than 14 inches, topping the regional snow total list. Nashville set a new precipitation record on January 24th, 1.92 inches of precipitation in a single day, much of it freezing rain. The Tennessee state meteorologist described the ice storm component as the worst the region had. Boston dug out from 20 inches with more in the forecast. Parts of Massachusetts and New York's Hudson Valley recorded 22-inch totals. And in Toronto, Ontario, where the storm transitioned into a classic nor'easter pattern as it moved northeast, Pearson International Airport recorded 46 centimeters in a single day, its largest single-day snowfall since records began in 1937. Over 560 flights were canceled. A potent lake-enhanced snowband stalled over the city for hours, eventually producing 50 centimeters in the core of downtown Toronto. The Ontario Provincial Police responded to approximately 100 car crashes over 24 hours. And then, as forecaster Charles Dalton of the NWS Morristown office had warned specifically, came the cold. The Arctic air that swept in behind the storm was not a brief overnight chill. It was the sustained, dangerous, deep cold that polar vortex disruptions deliver. Wind chills fell below minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit across the northern plains. A daily record, low of minus 34 degrees Fahrenheit, was set in Watertown, New York on January 24th, the coldest temperature ever recorded there in January. Eastern Iowa experienced wind chill values below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Grand Rapids, Michigan recorded a low of minus 19 degrees Fahrenheit, the coldest temperature in the area since 1990. 4. Flint, Michigan hit minus 24 degrees Fahrenheit, just 1 degree above the all-time record low for the area. The combination of extreme cold and ice and snow produced what No Way confirmed. More than 1 million customers initially lost power nationwide, not from wind damage, from ice on power lines, ice on trees overhanging those lines, ice weight causing branches to snap and fall, and from the cold itself, stressing electrical infrastructure built for normal winter conditions. The human cost was immediate and direct. In Des Moines, Iowa, a 51-year-old man died from cold exposure. A 19-year-old college student was found dead in Ann Arbor, Michigan, after going missing without a coat in the frigid conditions. In Arkansas, a 17-year-old boy died after striking a tree while riding a sled pulled by an ATV. An 11-year-old died in a separate ATV accident in the same county. A woman was killed in a sledding accident in Oklahoma City. And these deaths, each one specific, each one a human being with a family that received the worst news of their lives during the worst weather of the year, are the reason that weather broadcasts exist. Not to describe atmospheric physics for its own sake, not to showcase the spectacle of a large storm system from a satellite's perspective, but to tell people, clearly and urgently, that the storm developing off the coast of California on January 22nd is going to arrive at your city, in your county, in your road, in your street, and you need to make decisions today about what tomorrow looks like before the ice makes those decisions for you. Here's what the winter of 2025 to 2026 tells us when you stand at its end in May 2026 and look at the full arc of it. The Wikipedia North American winter of 2025 to 2026. Documentation describes a season of contradictions, one of the worst snowpack seasons ever in the Rocky Mountains, Salt Lake City's least snowy. Winter on record. While Providence, Rhode Island had its snowiest winter on record, and Islip, New York had its snowiest winter on record, and February 2026 became the snowiest single month ever in Providence. The worst snow year in recorded history for the West, the snowiest winter in decades for parts of the East. Record cold in the South, record warmth simultaneously in the Canadian Arctic, where Grise Fjord and Nunavut recorded a daily high of 5.5 degrees Celsius in January, above freezing in the Arctic in the coldest month of the year. These are not contradictions in the sense of being impossible. They are the specific expression of a polar vortex that has been weakened by a warming Arctic and is now delivering cold and warmth in the wrong places, in the wrong seasons, at the wrong intensities. Winter Storm Fern, Snowmageddon, the January 23rd to 27th North American winter storm, was the deadliest, most widespread, and most economically damaging single weather event of the 2025 to 2026 season. It produced major disaster declarations from President Trump for Mississippi, South Carolina, and multiple other states. FEMA activated surge resources. Power restoration took up to a week in some locations. And it began developing on January 21st with enough forecast lead time that 205 million Americans received winter weather alerts before the first flake fell. They received the warning. Some of them acted on it, some of them did not. And the difference between the ones who did and the ones who did not is the difference between a bad few days and a death in Des Moines, a college student found in Ann Arbor, a 17-year-old in Arkansas who rode a sled into a tree that the ice had made invisible until it was too late. The storm was developing. The forecast was accurate. And the gap between a good forecast and a safe outcome is always, in the end, what people decide to do with the warning they receive.